if you let your emotions control your behavior, you're going to have a messed up life. Emotional intelligence is about not letting that happen, being able to have your feelings, being able to solve problems with somebody else, being able to understand their feelings without letting your emotions run your mouth. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about collaborative problem solving. And the point of what I want to talk about here really is how learning how to do collaborative problem solving can help you increase your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a set of skills that you have that you learn throughout your lifetime that can be improved upon at any point in your life, at any age. And this model that I've come up with about collaborative problem solving just fits like a hand in a glove with emotional intelligence and working on emotional intelligence and learning new skills. It starts with, like, the American culture is, people are highly assertive, and children are highly assertive. So when I'm doing child therapy with kids, mainly what I work on is teaching them how to cooperate. And I define cooperating as doing what their parents want them to do. It's pretty simple. Learning how to do what other people want you to do is really important. So the kids I see are highly assertive. They know what they want. They go for it hard. They argue to get their way. But what they're not very good at is cooperating with their parents, and not very good necessarily at cooperating with their peers. So we work right away on that. So that's an important part of relationships is, kind of figuring out what you want and figuring out what the people you're dealing with want, and trying to work together toward getting something that both of you want to do. So I've got this diagram. The diagram is about managing disagreements. So on a scale of 1 to 10, when you're in a disagreement with somebody else, how much do you try to meet their concerns? So a 1 would be not very much. And a 10 would be you're knocking yourself out to do what they want. Most young people today aren't very good at that. And then there's another axis. The y-axis is on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do you try to meet your concerns? How much do you try to win the argument, in other words? So I ask people these questions. When there's a disagreement, on this scale of 1 to 10, how much are you trying to hear what the other person wants, and how much are you trying to meet their concerns? How much are you trying to find common ground? And on this axis, how assertive are you? How much do you try to win the argument and get your way? Okay? So this is assertiveness. And this I call cooperation. And notice that I've got a space here on a scale of 1 to 10. I don't let people say 5, because they commonly would. So they either go it's a 4.9 or a 5.1, but they can't say 5. So 5's off the table. So I want to talk about this couple that I saw yesterday. So I saw this couple for the first time, and they were stuck with the problem. The woman was a really giving person. She highly cooperative, and the husband described himself as an asshole. Okay, he knows how to say no. She knows how to say yes. So he's highly assertive up here and not very cooperative, and he owns it. The issue that they came in to talk about is the wife's mother had a major stroke, and she needs to be taken care of. She talks gibberish. She really can't live alone, and they really don't have money enough to put her in a nursing home. So they're stuck in this argument. Their children just graduated, and they're living on their own. He's finally got an empty nest. He wants to travel with his wife. He doesn't want this woman staying with them. And the wife, nobody else in the family is very functional, evidently, and she really wants to take care of her mother and wants to do it really badly, even if she needs to move out and live alone with her mother. She's kind of determined that they're going to do this. So what I said to him is, I want to walk you through this process. It's a 4-step process that I've come up with about collaborative problem solving. And, we're going to do this as an experiment. It may not work, but let's give it a go. I'm going to coach you how to do it. Now, I've never done this before. Right off the bat, to begin teaching them collaborative problem solving and going through it step by step. But, they said, okay, they'd give it a try. And I told them, if I ask them to say something that they don't want to say, or ask them to do something that they don't want to do, just tell me no. And then I say, you may have to tell me no a couple times because I just know myself that way, Okay, so I chose the man to be the problem solving, the husband. And I took him through this 4-step model, 1 step at a time. So the model is, the 4 steps are, ask your partner what she thinks about this idea. Use active listening, which I'm going to talk about in more detail, and see if you can listen accurately. And when you do that, you have to forget about what you want to accomplish. You have to forget about winning the argument. You just have to listen carefully. And then you have to ask questions, as is part of active listening. And then you have to state what you're hearing, and then state what the other person's feeling, and see if you have it accurate. And then if you have it accurate, we can move on to the next step. But the first step in it is for the couples to decide on a time and a topic. So we went through that in a role play. He asked her when she'd like to talk about it. She said, how about right now? And he said, no, let's set up an appointment for it. Let's talk about it Saturday morning. Now, why is that important? That's important because what we're doing in that first step is we're setting up like a business meeting. We know what we're going to talk about. We know when we're going to talk about it. You can kind of get prepared in your mind for doing it. And I think it's the first step in getting out of just trying to solve it emotionally and setting up a meeting to see if you can work out something that works for both of you. So we went through that in a role play. They agreed to Saturday morning. Now we're pretending it's Saturday morning. And he asks her what she wants to do and how she feels about her mother. And she goes right into it. Talks a little about their history. They didn't have the closest family in the world. Her mother was a caretaker and was always busy taking care of people. She took care of the most dysfunctional people the best. My client that we're talking about was the middle child. She had an older brother and a younger sister. So everybody in the family is pretty dysfunctional. And then the grandmother has a major stroke. She can't make a clear sentence at all. So she can't live on her own. She's got to live someplace. And my client the wife wants the mother to live with them. And she's committed to this, that I'm going to take care of my mother. And if that means I have to live just with my mother, that's what I'm going to do. And the husband is furious about this. He doesn't want it at all. He's going, we finally got the kids out of the house. We can travel. I don't want her living here, okay? But he's asking her and asking her how she feels about it. And she talks about it in a real emotional terms. This is really important to her. She's the most functional of the three children and gets the least attention from her mother. But she really wants to take care of her mother and, just do her best to provide for this woman that she's got really ambivalent feelings about. Okay, so he asks her and she breaks down crying and talks about how important this is to her and talks a little bit about that history and so forth. And even though the mother didn't take good care of her because she was taking care of everybody else, she was still committed to doing this. Okay, so then the husband has to summarize what her thoughts are and what her feelings are. And he's not very good at it. But in this experiment, I coach him through it. So he asks her what she's feeling about it, and well, she's bawling her eyes out, really. And then he says, so I hear you saying it's really important to have your mother live with us. And it's important to the point that you would live on your own with your mother if you have to. And she says, yeah, that's right. I would do that. So, and then he talks about her emotions, which I coach him to do. How do you think she's feeling? I think she's feeling really sad and upset and kind of torn. And he says that to her, and she says, yeah, that's right. That's right. So he did his part of active listening with a little help from me. And then the third step in the process is he gets to talk about his thoughts and feelings. And she doesn't have to summarize or use active listening. So he says, I don't want her here. I don't, we finally got some freedom. I don't enjoy your mother. I don't enjoy having her here. She can't even carry on a conversation. And I'm an asshole. I just don't want her here. okay? And she doesn't, again, the wife doesn't have to collaborate on that. And then I say, okay, let's move to the fourth stage. And that is, you're going to just brainstorm ideas that might work, might not work. We want to come up with some bad ones as well as some good ones. And so they understand that, and they start coming up with some. And some of the ideas that they've come up with, they've already talked about. Maybe they could live with the son. Nope, wouldn't work. Maybe they could live with the mom could live with her brother. Wouldn't work. Brother couldn't take care of her, wouldn't want to. Okay, so now we're kind of running out of the obvious things. And then I say, okay, I'm gonna help you with coming up with ideas, because it's just an experiment, and I'm laying that out for you. What about this idea? What about she could live with us for a year? What about that idea? Okay, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of that. And I said, what about this brother watching her for a weekend if you want to go out of town? What about this uncle doing the same thing? So we came up with some ideas. They were pretty stuck on it, but when we began brainstorming, and with my help, because I've done this a few times, they were able to come up with some ideas that they agreed on. This is a pretty functional couple, in my opinion. I think they have a good relationship. I think they love each other. They've been with each other since high school. They are pretty successful, and they agreed to try those things. And I think the husband, we didn't set this in stone, but I think he was okay with the idea of doing it on a short-term basis. And then I said to him, you could work on your compassion a little bit. How would you feel about yourself if you weren't an asshole? You know, how would you feel about yourself if you actually were empathetic and compromised? And he said he thought he could live with himself doing that. So, I mean, we didn't put it in stone, but I walked him through that process, which I did as an experiment, and I thought it was fairly successful. I mean, they needed my help, they needed my coaching, they needed my brainstorming, but they bought into the idea of trying to get on the same page. And I don't know if any of those ideas will hold. I don't know if they'll actually agree to it, but it looks like a good start. I just walk you through a way to do that, way to do this. So let's think about the wife. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think she was trying to listen to him and meet his needs? I'll tell you what I think. I think on most subjects, she was way over here, highly cooperative, trying to meet his needs and concerns. But on this subject, she was pretty firm that she was going to do it one way or another. So on this issue, I would say she wasn't in this quadrant, although she usually is. And I don't know if she would have been without me helping her. But she hung pretty firm on this. And her husband was highly assertive, wins most arguments, and gets in his way. So she's usually here. He's usually here. She usually gives in to him, which is really common. And I'm trying to get them up here in this collaborative mode. I'm trying to get them up here, trying to get something that works for both of them. And the wife came up here and was inviting him to join. I was inviting him to join. And I think tentatively he moved over here. And the only reason he did it is he doesn't want her living on her own with her mother. He just doesn't. But the idea of doing it on a short-term basis, up to a year, I think he could go along with that. And they could still get some time alone if they counted on those other people to do a weekend or two. So what does this have to do with emotional intelligence? Let's think about what emotional intelligence is. I mean, I think this is a really close fit with emotional intelligence because it's about knowing your own feelings, okay? Being able to verbalize them, being able to talk about them in a non-emotional way, really. Being able to talk about them in a matter-of-fact way. And being able to get into a collaboration where you understand the other person, you understand what they're saying, you're committed to trying to solve a problem rather than win the argument. And emotional intelligence and learning how to collaborate they're powerful social skills. They're powerful behaviors. Learning how to not just try to win the argument, not just try to submit to somebody else, but trying to really understand how you feel, be able to have your own feelings and still communicate in a clear way without letting those emotions control you. So I talk about emotions as being like a 13-year-old child, okay? So my emotions are like a 13-year-old child. It's like I'm in a car with a 13-year-old, and the 13-year-old wants to run the show, wants to drive the car. So if you let your emotions control your behavior, metaphorically, you're letting the emotional child part of you run your life and make decisions. And one of my skills is family therapy and systems theory, family systems theory. And Murray Bowen, who's the head of that branch of doing therapy, says if you let your emotions control your behavior, you're going to have a messed up life. So emotional intelligence is about not letting that happen, being able to have your feelings, being able to solve problems with somebody else, being able to understand their feelings without letting your emotions run your mouth, without letting your emotions run your behavior, and being committed to the relationship more than getting your own way. And this model is a way of getting that done. So emotional intelligence is a skill, and it's a skill you can improve on at any age, at any point in your life. Learning how to collaborate is the same skill. Learning how to solve problems together with somebody else. I notice when I do therapy with people, they become more emotionally intelligent in that they're more able to control their own feelings, they're more able to talk about their own feelings. Hopefully they're more able to do that in an empathetic way with other people. maybe not. We may not succeed in that, but hopefully it works in that way. But with this collaborative problem solving, if they're willing to work at it, you know, I mean, they've got a great opportunity to improve their emotional intelligence, which is really similar to positive mental health. And anyway, so I think these two things work together. I think you can work on improving your emotional intelligence. They both require you to listen well. They both require you to ask questions. And they both require you to get out of just accommodating other people and not just getting your way, but trying to work out something that is agreeable to both of you. So, and that means in this model, getting to collaboration. So I hope you understand what I'm talking about. I gave you an example of this couple that we just went through those steps together, and they did the best with it that they could. And I think it was really fairly productive. Anyway, I hope you can see how you can work on your emotional intelligence and learn how to improve your relationships with people using this model that I've come up with. So if you have questions, ask your questions. I love them. They give me more material to talk about the next time we present this stuff. Thank you.